They tell us that wealth is loud, that it shines, travels fast, posts often, and leaves a trail of receipts behind it. They tell us that if something is cheap, it must be worthless. And if something is simple, it must be incomplete. But long before algorithms, advertisements, and hustle culture decided what success looks like, there was a very different idea of wealth, quiet, light, and almost invisible. In 18th century Japan, during the long peace of the Edo period, there lived a samurai who never became famous. His name was rarely recorded. He didn't serve a powerful lord. He didn't own lands, silk robes, or a large house. Instead, he lived in a small hut near the forest, close to Mount Hiei. He owned 2 kimonos, a short sword, and a wooden cup. That was all. One day a wealthy merchant came to visit him. The merchant was confused. "Why do you live like this?" he asked. "With your skill and discipline, you could work for a lord, wear fine clothes, eat well, and live comfortably." The samurai smiled and poured cold stream water into his wooden cup. "A sip of cold water brings more peace than the finest sake," he said, "if the heart is calm." That samurai owned almost nothing, yet he lived with peace. And that peace made him rich in a way the merchant could not understand. Stories like this tend to disappear in a noisy world, which is why it's worth holding on to them. And if you find yourself drawn to ideas that move quietly rather than loudly, this might be the kind of space you'll want to return to again. At first, this story sounds romantic, maybe even unrealistic. We live in a different world now, don't we? Bills, responsibilities, competition. Surely simplicity is a luxury reserved for monks, philosophers, or people who already made it. But this idea that the cheaper your pleasures, the richer you become did not belong to one place or one time. It has appeared again and again across cultures, centuries apart, spoken by people who had nothing to gain by saying it. In ancient Greece, Epicurus taught that happiness does not come from abundance, but from sufficiency. He lived quietly, eating bread and cheese, drinking water, and spending time in conversation with friends. He warned that chasing luxury only stretches desire further, like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. The problem is not that pleasure is bad. The problem is that expensive pleasure trains you to need more. Today, many people believe that being rich means having more. More money, more experiences, more upgrades, more freedom. But what they rarely talk about is the price that comes with that pursuit. Long hours, constant pressure, relationships postponed, health quietly eroding, rest treated as a reward instead of a necessity. Studies now confirm what ancient thinkers already knew. Working too much for too long damages both body and mind. Yet people keep pushing, telling themselves that relief will come later, once they reach some invisible finish line. Conversations like this exist to slow that momentum, to pause and reflect. And if that pause feels valuable, staying connected makes sense. Long ago in China, the philosopher Zhuangzi wrote about this trap. He observed that people become imprisoned by the things they desire: fame, wealth, longevity, recognition. Even when they get what they want, they are afraid of losing it. Their pleasures turn into responsibilities. Their success becomes a burden. The love of pleasure, he said, often makes people unhappy. The rich work endlessly to maintain what they have, becoming servants to the very lives they built to feel free. The same idea echoed centuries later in the West. Henry David Thoreau left society and built a small wooden cabin near a quiet pond. He lived there for 2 years with very little: simple food, simple shelter, and long stretches of silence. He wrote that the richest man is the one whose pleasures are cheapest. This wasn't a metaphor, it was a diagnosis. When you require expensive conditions to feel content, you become fragile. Your standards rise, but your joy shrinks. Think about how pleasure works. At first, a nice meal feels incredible. Then it becomes normal. Soon, it feels ordinary. So you look for something better, fancier, rarer, more expensive. The cycle continues, and each step costs more than the last while delivering less satisfaction. This is not because you are ungrateful. It is because the nervous system adapts. What once felt special becomes expected. Exploring these patterns, slowly, one idea at a time, is often more meaningful than rushing through conclusions. But imagine the opposite. Imagine being able to feel genuine joy from a morning walk, from the sound of wind through trees, from a cup of tea held in both hands, from a quiet evening with someone you care about. These pleasures don't lose their power as easily. They don't demand upgrades. They don't trap you in cycles of comparison. They go straight to the heart. An old samurai once said that the best things in life do not cost much. A quiet moment, a good walk, a simple book. These can bring more peace than anything money can buy. The philosopher Schopenhauer believed that quiet pleasures, thinking, reading, watching the rain, were superior to loud, exciting ones, because they offer joy without pain. They don't overstimulate. They don't crash. If reflections like these resonate, you'll probably appreciate continuing this journey beyond a single video. Even Epicurus made a careful distinction between two types of pleasure. The first is the pleasure of satisfying a desire, eating when hungry, drinking when thirsty. The second is the pleasure of calm, the feeling after you are full, when nothing is missing. He believed this second kind was greater, because it asks for nothing more. It is complete. So how did we forget this? Somewhere along the way, we began to confuse stimulation with happiness, noise with meaning, motion with progress. We were taught that wanting less means settling, that enjoying simple things means lacking ambition. But what if it's the opposite? What if choosing simple pleasures is not a failure of desire, but a mastery of it? These are the kinds of questions worth returning to again and again. Consider how much power you give away when your happiness depends on things that are expensive, rare, or hard to maintain. You must earn more, work longer, stay relevant, stay ahead. Your peace becomes conditional. But when your joy comes from things that are simple, easy, and always close, warm food, kind words, fresh air, you become harder to control, harder to pressure, harder to exhaust. This doesn't mean rejecting comfort or pretending money doesn't matter. It means understanding that wealth is not accumulation. It is independence from excess desire. Real wealth is needing very little. Real peace is wanting nothing more in this moment. The paradox is that when you stop chasing pleasure, you start to feel it again. When you lower the cost of joy, it becomes abundant. When you stop outsourcing happiness to future achievements, it becomes available now. Look closely at the people who seem the most at ease. Often, they are not the ones with the most impressive lifestyles, but the ones who know how to enjoy ordinary moments without needing to improve them. They can sit quietly. They can be alone without distraction. They can appreciate what is already here, and perhaps that is the quiet rebellion of our time. Choosing contentment in a culture built on dissatisfaction. If you've ever felt tired of chasing, tired of upgrading, tired of needing more just to feel okay, this philosophy isn't asking you to escape the world. It's inviting you to change how tightly you grip it, to trade some ambition for clarity, some excess for ease. The cheaper your pleasures, the richer you become, not because you have less, but because less is finally enough. And if this way of thinking speaks to you, if you'd like to keep exploring calm ideas, ancient wisdom, and perspectives that don't shout for attention, subscribing is simply a way of staying connected. Not to noise, but to the next quiet conversation when you're ready for it.